Good evening, everybody. Welcome, and I'll call to order our meeting here for the Milton School Committee Wednesday, February 28th at 7:04 p.m. We will begin with our Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So our first item is to approve the agenda for this evening. I already know of a few changes. One is that we'll be postponing the Director of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging to thank you, sorry, to next week's agenda, right? And I think the other big change is that I know about is we're going to actually move up the Milton High School Program of Studies to be our first item prior to Citizen Speak, because Principal Cahill has to rush off to the Ulan rink for the girls hockey team in the playoffs. So I'm going to get you out of here as quickly as possible. But does anyone else have any changes to the agenda for tonight?
Yeah, so warrant number 34 hasn't been signed yet, but 31 and 32 are good to go.
All right.
I have a change. The Facility Advisory Committee was not able to meet. We were not able to get quorum. Too many members had conflicts, so that meeting was canceled. There's no update there.
Okay. Got it. Thank you. I actually think I don't have anything under the chair's report for this evening either, so I'll probably just eliminate that item. So
I'm just going to get rid of my report too.
We know we're on a roll here.
I'm just
I'll go for 3.
I'm actually giving you my time, so you can have extra time tonight. All right, so without further ado, is that okay if we just go straight to the program of study?
Yeah.
So I know we already had the opportunity to review and ask questions last meeting. And if members have further clarifications prior to, we will be voting on this evening.
And thank you for adjusting the time. I do appreciate it. Puck drops at 7.
It's very exciting.
It's exciting. I'm happy for the team.
Yeah.
I'm really happy. They've worked hard this season. Boys are playing tomorrow night, so I appreciate the support. I know they do as well, so thank you.
All right, does anyone have questions for Principal
I
King?
had a question about Matt. Because he's going to ask it.
Go for it.
Do you want to ask it?
You can go.
Okay. We're just looking at the math trajectory. Could you describe from 9th grade to 12th grade kind of how students can select into, out of different math courses? And, for example, a student planning to take calculus, is there one pathway, a number of pathways, that kind of thing? Like what's because in the chart it shows 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade with different
Sure.
courses. Are those set to that grade alone, or is there other movement?
Usually, are you looking at the projection in the program of studies with the nice Google sheet that Mr. Seelig presented?
Yeah, we're looking.
Yes, that one. That's
yeah.
a fun one. Overall, that is the normal trajectory for students to get into calculus, whether it's calculus, AP Calc AB, AP Calc BC over the course of 4 years. There are always diversions to the pathway, but those are conversations that they have with Mr. Seelig and math teachers, depending on the student's background in math. And that's the easiest way to answer the basic part of the question. Usually students do start in course 1 freshman year and project their way through the rankings. But with the addition of AP Pre-Calc, that's a new course that started this year. It just kind of changes the path a little bit for some students. So we're still navigating what that looks like as we move forward.
In the pathways, I'd see it. There's no course pathway that includes both AP Calc and AP Stats. Like our Is that just because of obviously the limitations of like a chart versus are kids able to do both? And
They're able to do both. They're absolutely. I guess you would have to look at, for some students, AP Stats is an elective. You know, when 4 years of math are required, so usually AP Stats is something students can take their sophomore, junior, or senior year. It is something, as I said, it's usually seen as concurrently with the traditional, for lack of better words, the traditional math track that's taken. But it is something they definitely can consider any of those 3 years.
And then I guess the last question I kind of have is like I saw a previous version of this chart where ninth graders coming in were either taking course 1 or course 2. Like I heard there's a placement test essentially where you could place out. So is that still the case with this, the proposal? That's not changing?
Mr. Seelig works with the 8th grade math teachers to address any appropriate placements for students when it comes to course 1 versus course 2. Both of them are algebra, geometry, statistics. It's just the exposure that they have prior to going into course 2 to make sure they have the foundations so that they can be successful in course 2. But Mr. Seelig works with the 8th grade math teachers to find that appropriate placement.
Gotcha.
Does that answer your question?
It does. But essentially, there's still, if a person doesn't take that test, I guess part of this is like the conversation we have around like the high school 8th grade like transition piece of just like how much are the 8th grade teachers helping them with that if there's some type of placement test before they get to the high school to ensure that pathway for, given that that has an impact over 4 years, right, more so than potentially some other departments.
I'm happy to revisit that conversation. Mr. Selig's been out sick this whole week. Sorry if he's listening right now. I know he can delve deeper into that piece of the course selection process. I can give you a general overview. I can't speak specifically to that.
Yeah, no, I understand. I appreciate it. Thank you. I'm sorry to hold you up.
No, not at all.
I have a question. I'm not sure if this is the right time to raise it. First of all, I really appreciate having the website, the program of study with all the information listed. I was looking at the graduation requirement.
Yes.
Language requirement is not one of them.
Correct.
But then we do have, like, it is an important part of our curriculum. So I'm just curious about, like, are we thinking in the future to adjust the graduation requirement or not?
Absolutely. That is something I absolutely want to look at big picture. It is something on my big master plan that I want to add for the high school, at least a 2-year graduation requirement. Tomorrow night is Program of Studies night where I'm going to go over all of the requirements for high school. And what I do stress with families is, despite the fact that we don't have a language requirement, the state of Massachusetts for state colleges requires at least 2 years of the same foreign language at the high school level. I would say 85–90% of our students meet that requirement just because they continue in the track, right? Most of our students actually exceed that with 3 or 4 years. It is something that I definitely want to explore and I feel is important for us to have. So yes. Another question
with that is that we call ourselves World Language Department, but we only offer 3 European languages. So is a conversation going to happen about how can we make ourselves actually world language, and if we are going to consider offering languages other than French, Spanish, and Latin? We have, over the past years, in my experience at the high school, so I'm not even just talking when I was principal, we've had those conversations. Of course, it also comes down to staffing and availability and interest, but it is always something I'm willing to look at. We have a more global population, so we should definitely expand our languages, but again, it comes down to funding, staffing, and availability. But happy to have that conversation anytime. Great. I hope we have some updates in the future.
Any other questions? All right. In that case, I'll make a motion to approve the Milton High School 2024-2025 Program of Studies. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
luck.
Appreciate it. Do you want me to send you text updates on the status of the game?
Please.
I'll see what I can do.
Sure. Thanks.
I appreciate your flexibility. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'll have
Have
my
a great
phone
night.
here.
I will text you.
Yeah.
Is it live stream?
We've got
Split
content
screen.
here.
Yeah. Okay, so now we will just go back to citizen speak. And under our policy, we have up to 15 minutes for members of the community to join us and share their comments with us for up to 3 minutes apiece. So I don't believe we have any members of the community, present in person. Are any of you here for citizen speak? All right. Dr. Pavlicek, is anyone raising their hands online? If you would like to participate in citizen speak online, can you raise your hand at this time, please?
No, the only person online is our school committee clerk.
Okay. All right. In that case, we will just move right on to superintendent's report.
Great, thank you. So before we welcome a few new awesome folks into MPS here, I want to just share a couple things on my report. The first one, school building committee met, and I wanted to just talk from the school side. We're excited that there's been a lot of talk for many, many months. We're now, with the selection of an architect, are putting together a district team to start really talking about what the new school will look like. So this is going to be pretty fast-paced. We talked earlier tonight with Chris, and we've been kind of going back and forth to put that team together and start thinking about, and envisioning and working with the architect to determine where we're headed. So it's exciting to finally be moving, as opposed to it's been a year of it's been many years of conversation, but since my tenure, it's nice to see things start to come to fruition. The other thing I just wanted to mention, March 5 is rapidly approaching next week, so this is the really big day for us, where all of our staff are coming together here in the auditorium. I'm going to be presenting the priority report, a quick overview, and then we're going to be really engaging everybody in both reflecting on the report, but also reflecting on their work in MPS, their role, where they see places that we need to be spending more time in the years ahead, and essentially having all staff be part of building the direction and vision forward. We spent a lot of time designing this day. I think it's going to be meaningful. I think people are going to come away feeling like they both got something from it in terms of sharing with the different groups that they're going to be working with. There's a job alike group to start out, where they'll be, I'm a first grade teacher, I'll be with other first grade teachers. There's also an interest-based group, so if I want to talk about finance, it's just going to be bland. I probably not very many people in that group, but SEL, or I want to talk about assessment, there will be a group where I would go, and with those people, we'd be talking about assessment district-wide.
And people self-select
select into that second one. And then in the afternoon, they're going to get a brown bag lunch to grab on their way out. And then they'll go back to their buildings. And at their buildings, they'll be talking about really kind of what are the needs in our building and reflecting that on the district. So from the building vantage point, so giving people time to come back together as a building, what do we need, and kind of what do we need from the district too, and so trying to kind of hit as many angles as we can to collect all this information to then really not do this blindly, but really know, where our staff are, what they need, what their vision is, and work to bring that together as we start to put the stakes in the ground. So that's something I'm just, it's been kind of, this whole year has been building, I think, towards this event in some ways. And I think from this, we'll start moving pretty quickly, I think. So that's another exciting thing. And then a final thing I wanted to mention, I've mentioned our website and communications system overhaul. We met today, and Glenn is going to, I don't know if he knows this yet, but he's going to be bargaining. We're going to try to get the cost down a little bit. So I'll talk to you about that later.
Okay.
For about what we're spending right now with our we currently have a website and a communication software, and what we're buying is those two things combined.
Hmm.
So we have a website and then Blackboard. So the product we're going to use has both of those together. And it's looking like Aptigee. I don't know if anyone here has used that before. It's a really good product. I'd heard about it many years ago, and a lot of school districts are using it. So that is now, once we make this final selection and get through these final pieces, we'll start building that out. And this isn't really about building a new website. It's about creating a new infrastructure within which to communicate. And it's going to be much more accessible for teachers and staff members and other people. So I think you're going to see a pretty big shift in terms of our look and feel, and along with the logo work. We're gonna be there. We can retire. So that's my update.
Do you mind if we ask a follow-up question?
Yeah.
When you talked about March 5th and sharing your priorities, is that your updated version of the strategic plan that you've been working on? Is that what you mean?
No, it's the priority report is the listening and learning portion of my entry plan.
Okay.
So it's the forums, it's the surveys, it's all the individual and group meetings I had.
You're just going to share out what you've discovered.
Findings.
What I found,
Okay.
but I went a step further in this report. Instead of just doing, this is kind of what I heard, this is what you all are talking about, we also have a big analysis section where we looked at, in those priority categories, academic excellence, climate, culture, and well-being. We basically looked at those areas, and I had 30 people in this document sharing and kind of putting thoughts into where are we currently in these areas. So we did an analysis too, and not just a listening, which I think will be more helpful. Out of that analysis, we have future directions at the bottom of each one of those priority areas. And that's kind of what I think the staff on Tuesday will be reflecting against those future directions. Like, do those resonate with you? Do they not? What's missing? This report is not totally exhaustive. If it was, it would be 500 pages. So it's a high level kind of overview, and it wasn't meant to get every little thing. So I think we're hoping
But the
that.
priorities.
Yeah.
Priority. Is the plan to take the feedback and ultimately update the strategic plan or create a new strategic plan? What's the arc of this work?
So I've been conceptualizing this as an implementation plan to kind of sidle alongside the strategic plan. So that's kind of been my conception of what comes out of this. It's almost the further distillation of the current level of the action steps within the strategic plan. I think, as I've done my research and reviewed the strategic plan, I have ideas of how that strategic plan could potentially adapt to what the findings are and what our staff and community are saying around, like pinpointing the kind of the clarity in that a little bit more. Whether we need to go back and do that, or whether the implementation plan can be the kind of the harbinger of what we need, I think is a question that we should talk about for sure.
And in terms of your timing, is it something that you anticipate that will be done before the end of the school year so that people can start working on that implementation piece before the fall or in time for the fall?
Yeah, the plan is to get the implementation planning done by summer, so that in the summer we're kind of gearing up, we're thinking about PD. And usually a PD plan, you're working on it right now for next year. So we've got a lot of work that we need to do internally in terms of systems development, so I'm not too concerned around not having everything figured out right now. But yeah, that's the plan.
And so you are bringing it, you're processing it with the staff
Tuesday.
next Tuesday, March 5th. The following day, March 6th, we meet, and you're sharing it with us.
Yep.
So that will be our opportunity to sort of ask you questions and to make sure we're understanding. And from there, you've indicated you'll put forward some series of community engagement opportunities. Okay.
And will we see it, I know you prefer to make sure that your team has the opportunity to preview things out of respect.
Yeah.
Are you going to share this as a presentation so that we will have enough time to process it instead of coming to the meeting cold? Is that,
Yeah, so we met with the design team this afternoon, and they're getting it to us Monday night for Tuesday.
I'm sorry. There will be plenty of time to reflect and be presentable.
So I can share it with you all on Monday night when I get it, for sure.
Okay.
But I'm not going to present, this is going to be a
And that would have been
huge
okay, too, if
PDF,
you
so I'm
did.
not going to present that to staff on Tuesday. I'm going to create a presentation that will, a simplified version.
Is that,
And then we're
can
going
we
to
get
give
that
people.
too?
Yes,
Could you present it as though we are the staff?
I could do that. Yeah.
Thank you. Because there's no way we're reading that PDF. If
We're
it's
not
that
gonna
big,
have
we won't
time.
read it by Wednesday, but I would
Well,
love to hear it
we
from
talked
just
about
Phil.
this. We were debating because I really didn't want to send the Google Doc of this report, which is just impossible to get through. And looking today and seeing, they just showed us like 2 or 3 pages, but it's so much better in this version. Like, you can actually read it well. If I sent out this Google Doc now, which is done, I don't think it would have the right impact. It would waste all the time we're spending to design it. So that's we've switched it around a little bit, and staff will get it probably day of, right? That's kind of what we.
They might like
talked
the
about.
presentation version too.
You can have it all. You can have
No,
it
no,
all.
no.
You can have it
I
all.
say it in jest, but I do believe if you have the opportunity to bring it to life for us,
Yeah.
that context
Yeah.
does help versus just reading a flat document.
Oh no, that was my plan. I wasn't gonna
Agreed.
Drop it.
I wasn't gonna drop it. No, it wasn't gonna be a mic drop. Somebody go into
All right.
personnel.
Yeah, that sounds great. So yes, this next part is very exciting.
All right. So first up is Katie Blake, who is our new Assistant Superintendent of Finance and Operations.
Welcome.
It'll be the 2 of you on that committee on Tuesday.
So we are really, really excited to have found Katie, and Katie have found us. She comes with a lot of experience, with a lot of great energy. And do you want to just share a little bit about kind of your journey here, and then I'm sure folks here have questions.
Sure. So, good evening, everyone. I'm so thrilled to be here tonight. So, thank you for taking the time to let me speak and introduce myself. So, I have been working in education for the past 7 years. I'm currently the Assistant Superintendent for Finance and Operations for North Attleboro Public Schools, and I've been there just about 2 years. And before that, I was the Director of Business and Finance for Duxbury Public Schools. So it's been about 7 years, like I said, that I've been working in education, but it seems like it was a bit longer. I had worked in the school system for a few years and had formerly been appointed as the business director, and then the pandemic hit, and I think that really changed the landscape of being a school business administrator. So it's been a lot of really hard work, but I truly enjoy the work, and I'm really excited to be here tonight. Previous to working in education, I worked for State Street Corporation for 13 years, and I held a number of different roles there, but I really credit that work in learning accounting and project management and billing and operations a lot of that experience truly helps me be able to be successful in the role that I currently have now. So, but like I said, thrilled to be here. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much. We're thrilled to have you here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Any questions for anybody?
I was on the hiring committee along with some other people, and just want to echo some of the sentiments that have already made, which is great interview process, very nice getting to know you, very excited for what you bring to the district and for our kids and our staff. It was kind of a unanimous feeling across the board within that committee.
I think your mic's off.
That's good. That means nobody can hear the nice things I was saying.
You can start over.
Again, just across the board, unanimous feeling of positive feeling of Katie kind of came in the room, again, how experienced she is, her skill set, her personality, all that just came through very well. So I think we're really blessed that
Thank
you applied and you accepted, and we'll have you on the team. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Really excited.
Thank you.
Looking forward to working with you.
Yes, same. Thank you.
Welcome to Milton.
Thank you.
Excited to have you.
Thank you.
Yeah, be here before we know it, right?
It will.
Yeah.
It's going to be a quick couple of months, so.
Well, and one of the benefits we have with Glenn being here too is just a great transition as well. So that's a huge boon.
This feeling I'm not going to be allowed to leave.
We are figuring that out too. Yeah.
I will say throughout the process, it was so nice to hear how highly people spoke of you. I think I probably heard a few different times that I'll have some pretty big shoes to fill. So really looking forward to, I think it's puts my mind at ease coming into a new district, that I think there'll be some strong support in the transition. So I'm looking forward to it.
And you're joining a great team too.
Yes. Yes.
Whom you met. Yeah.
Looking
Yeah.
forward to it.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you.
All right. Thank you. So nice to meet you all. Thank you.
And next up is Tom McCarthy, who is our new Consolidated Facilities Director.
Welcome.
And some of you may know Tom already, not a new face to Milton.
Yeah.
And not a new face to the high school.
No,
right?
no. I've been in the town for 22 years. All of my kids have come through here. I was telling Dr. Borosman, Glenn knows, I coach with the rugby team here at the high school. I've been with Public Works in Milton for going on 8 years. I've been in public service for 29 years. So I kind of know a lot of the players throughout the schools, so it helps. Certainly a new board. I was on the boosters, the athletic boosters for a while. Did a lot of work with the board and the schools then. So, and again, my kids all went through this school, so.
Do you want to talk a little bit about kind of your vision of just taking over for Chris and kind of what you're thinking about in terms of like short-term, long-term?
Yeah, obviously I want to get with Chris and kind of, because what he set in motion, I had a rapport with Bill Ritchie, who was here before, because I worked with him before, and I got a good rapport with Bob. So it's more kind of get with those guys and see where the path is leading and try to bring it into the middle and take my vision and their vision and make sure it's the right vision.
Well, it's really great to have you bringing all of your experience of our facilities into this role. That's exciting, and it's exciting to have a nice mix of like a new face and experience kind of from other settings, and deep, like rich experience from Milton. It's really good to have that combination. Very
Yeah,
exciting that you're here.
I'm very excited to take on this role.
Well, there's a lot of facilities needs, so hopefully.
It'll be busy, I'm no doubt about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
So, and Chris isn't far. I know I can lean on him. He's actually one street over from where I live, so if he doesn't answer the phone, I go knock on the door.
Yeah, and you have the opportunity for a transition
Yeah.
here too, right? Because he's still going to be here for another month or so.
Yes. So that's going to be key.
Can't wait to work with you.
All right, excellent.
Looking forward to it.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank
Have
you.
a good night.
Better work ahead.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you. And the Milton Times interview now, right?
2 nights in a row.
So the next thing on my report here is the Cunningham Attic Design Update. What's that?
4th floor.
Fourth floor design.
4th floor, that's right, not the attic, the 4th floor. So the work, we are underway in beginning to look at what we can do with that space. I mentioned previously that we had asked our principals in both buildings, in the same building in both schools, to talk with staff. So they did a lot of work with staff to get a full list of all the needs that staff had, and staff gave priorities. So they said, you know, if you could have a breakout room, a teacher's lounge, an intervention space, like classroom, all those things, what would you pick? What do we need? So we have all that information. That information is being shared with DRA, who's an architectural firm we've used frequently. And Glenn was part of, how many people were there? Just the 3 of you?
The 4 of us. Last Thursday, Carl Franceschi from DRA, Bill Ritchie, Chris Hayden, and myself did a tour of the building, talking about different spaces, going up to the 4th floor, looking at the library, looking at all the different aspects of it, and sort of, drawing out what the possibilities might be. Carl has, of course, the plans for it since DRA built the building. But what we're doing is having the principals update all the usages of all the different rooms, because some of them have changed over time. And he is going to get back to us with some ideas of possibilities of ways to use the 4th floor, hopefully within the next couple weeks.
And we're not asking for a level of definition that is real granular right now. We're working on the idea phase to then go back to our principals to talk through, okay, like here's what we're finding initially. What do you think about this? Get their input and then move forward. Part of this is dependent obviously on funding. Capital planning is meeting
Tomorrow morning.
Tomorrow morning. And it looks like this is one of the things currently on the plan. So we're feeling hopeful about that. Yeah.
I don't remember, is there elevator in the Cunningham School?
Yes, it's on the Cunningham side of that 4th floor.
It goes up all the way to...
It goes all the way to the 4th floor.
I'll consider when you have bad knees, climb 4 floors up.
Yeah, accessibility is key.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
Sounds good.
that. Yeah. And then the final thing on my report is the Special Education Task Force. And Danielle Wetmore is here.
Hi.
Who's our Director of Student Services.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
How
are you?
And she's going to take us through the formation of the task force, I think some of the work that she's doing kind of in general, and giving us a bit of a dive into what I think is some of the most important work we're doing.
Yeah, so I thought for my first sort of presentation for you all was really just to walk through what the first 6 to 8 months have been in terms of our work in the Student Services Department, with I think the primary focus being on the creation of a task force based on our special ed program review that happened in the spring of 2023. So when I was onboarded, one of my first tasks was to look at, is that, oh, this is you, okay. Can
Just
you
say
go on to-
when.
Oh, now. So for today, we'll talk about just a task force update, what we've been working on, the goal of the task force and why we're doing it in the first place. Just some programming updates. A huge priority that I've heard from all stakeholders within the special education world is really around the alignment of programs in Milton and how we can ensure that our students are getting what they need in the least restrictive setting. Additionally, another area of focus that we're currently in the midst of is working on some transition planning specific to kids transitioning schools, so pre-K to K, 5 to 6, 8 to 9, and then our postgraduate students. Our new adoption of the IEP, which is due, required by us by September 2024, and then our rollout of our Power School special programs, and then the work that the CPAC and I are doing in terms of our collaboration and work together. Go. So like I said, the program review for special education was completed in the spring 2023. It was a great resource for me to onboard and to really look at what the strengths and challenges within special education as viewed by all the stakeholders, teachers, educational assistants, families, community members. And so in the fall, we created a multidisciplinary team that consisted of general and special educators, educational assistants, related service providers, specialists, building and district administrators, a CPAC representative, and Anna has been joining us as well. We meet at Pierce Middle School about once a month, and really the goal is to take a deep dive into that special education program review and have a goal of generating a priority list to really drive a multi-year plan within special education. So the goal for me at the end of this year is really to look at building structures and supports in a longer term plan. So as I'm unpacking Milton, I'm seeing that, we're reacting to kids' needs versus really taking a step back and looking at structures and systems and how we can better support students in the longer term, rather than, we need a para here or a teacher here. It's really, let's take a step back, look at the resources we have, and start building upon that. So the work of the task force is hefty, but everyone is really engaged and it's been fun. Next slide. So within the first 2 sessions, we really did the deep dive into the common strengths and challenges across the district through the interviews, the surveys, some of the observations, and the resources that were provided through that program review. There were various articles and resources that were provided to us. We were able to look at the strengths within special education that included faculty, community relations with teachers and family members, as well as a student-centered view across the board. I think everyone is on the same page that we are here for students. Thought I did something wrong. And then looking at some of the challenges. For example, the varying understandings of simply the word inclusion and how people view inclusion from different lenses. As well as the alignment of programs, clarity in special education language, and an understanding of accommodations. The report also noted some professional development needs specific to related service providers, educational assistants, and special education teachers, and then the ongoing development and improvement of our tiered systems of support. So while there are pieces out there, just driving that structure more consistently so that students can receive support in the least restrictive way, which is in a general ed setting. Other priorities that we saw included ongoing curriculum review. A lot of our teachers report that they have curriculum, but really looking to align some of that based on the diverse student needs, as well as training in co-teaching. Next slide. So any questions about the task force portion? So something that Andy, the assistant director, and I have been working a lot on is the alignment, vertical alignment of programs within special education. So we have worked with the special education team since the start of the school year to figure out what we have, what's in place now, just evaluating that, evaluating student need, really looking at a student-centered approach to program development, and and then what type of resources are needed within those programs. We currently have a pretty significant increase in initial evaluations for students, as well as an increase in our students that are placed out of district specific to autism spectrum disorders, emotional, specific learning disabilities, and neurological. So some of the work we're doing is around looking at those students and figuring out how we can bring them back to district in a way that they can get the support that they need in a less restrictive environment. So what we currently have working is that we drafted a program grid with current programs and realigned them to look at indicators and data supports to help drive a more homogeneous group of students within those programs. It's currently being reviewed by our team chairs to get their feedback. They're in those meetings every day. And then our next step will be to look for, have the lens of the building leaders and our special educators look at this program grid to figure out if we're on the right track and if that support. The ultimate goal is really, I'm hoping by the fall 2024, is to have a draft program grid which would be a working document. So as we build and develop programs, we'll add to that, and it'll include special ed definitions with the goal of working with CPAC to train it out to families, maybe have a video on their website. I don't know. We're really talking crazy about how to make sure families are engaged and have the same resources that we have as educators. Next slide. Something that we're currently working on and has driven a lot of support and feedback, and we've talked about since September. I established monthly building-based special ed meetings with the faculty, which hadn't been done prior to my arrival, just to really increase communication between the faculty and the district at the district level. And that has been an ongoing agenda item for us, is figuring out how to best support the transition. So in February, we had used our early dismissal time to focus on what our current systems for transition are, our needed improvements, and how we can build caseloads moving forward before scheduling so that we can start adapting our students' schedules to what their needs are, and not sort of how historically it has been is that special ed students have been scheduled later than the regular schedule. So sort of shifting that narrative so that way our students are getting more access to things like electives. So that is ongoing work that we're doing currently. Next slide. So the last area, the last big area is around the new IEP adoption. So in September 2024, we're required by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education to roll out the new IEP. It's the first update since 2001. I really like the new IEP format. It's really more specific. It's easier to read. So we have attended some initial Department of Ed supported meetings. We've begun the process of training this out internally, and then working to identify training opportunities for parents, general educators, building leaders, and other support staff like curriculum directors. So that way everyone's on the same page about what this form looks like, where they can find, for example, student accommodations and things like that. So all of that is a work in progress. What I've decided to do to make it even more exciting for my first year is adopt our Power School special programs. So what we were realizing when we adopted Power School, our student information system, is that Frontline didn't talk to Power School. So I actually spent the first month of my work figuring out how to bring accommodations onto Power School so that teachers had access to the student IEP, which was an awesome undertaking. So immediately we were like, is there a better way to do this? Power School had this platform called Special Programs. We started looking into it. Our team chairs met with Power School to see if it was compatible, if it made sense for them. It's a really awesome system. And we decided through an IEP grant to take this on this year and start doing the work to onboard this platform this spring. So the hope is we have weekly meetings right now with Power School, and just to onboard all of it, and then by the end of March that will be ready to go. So our teachers will have access to the new IEP through Power School special programs to work out any bugs for the next 3 months with the goal of rolling out the IEP in September with hopefully no issues because we'll have 3 months to do it now. So we'll be piloting that throughout the spring once all of that is rolled out. A really cool piece of it that I thought was important to note is a digital signature aspect to it. So the capacity for us to efficiently roll over IEPs and really have accepted IEPs go into effect will be much quicker this way, as long as parents support that digital signature, which will be individualized based on meetings. So I thought that was a really cool component of it. It makes the ease of the paper trail less. We're saving the planet one signature at a time, so it'll be really exciting. And then just finally, I just wanted to, really appreciate our CPAC. We've worked really well together. I've been participating in their monthly meetings, just giving updates and answer special education related questions. Oh, sorry, next one. Maybe two. Next one. Yep, sorry. And then the co-chairs and I have actually collaborated during other monthly meetings to really move work forward. So that larger meeting will really be around updates, what we're working on. And then the smaller meeting will be working on things like potential parent training, how can we increase parent engagement in the CPAC, and then prioritizing and increasing communication between caregivers and district faculty and staff. Any questions?
One, as you
Sure.
look at, if I go back to slide, I think it's 5, and look at the last bullet around the 65 students that are placed right now out of district. And as you're looking at that, I know that a huge barrier to sort of bringing back students is space.
Yes.
But I guess I'm hoping and that as you look at sort of this idea, the aspiration of bringing them back, right, that we don't let sort of space limit sort of the planning, right, that we can plan, sort of think about that. It might not be feasible right away, but that we don't start with, well, we can't because, right, the space is the limitation, but instead begin from framing it differently, right? If space were no issue, how would we be able to bring students back?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that I think looking at our students with reading disabilities, for example, and dyslexia who are on IEPs, in the least restrictive environment, there's research that shows that they make more progress when they're included more often. So having those opportunities for students wouldn't create space as a barrier. So looking at some of these programs on where are students needing more of that pull-out support versus in-class support. So as we look at that, I think you can really take space out of the conversation. So as we build upon that over the next couple of years, I think you'll start to see that that decrease in out-of-district placements.
That's great.
I also want to congratulate you on being so proactive, given that it was your first year getting fully engaged with the CPAC and being thoughtful about a task force, which sometimes gets a bad rap in Milton.
That was an early piece of feedback I got.
Yeah. I'm sure you did. I got it too.
What's the point of those task force?
I got it too. And you clearly delineated the priorities, and a lot of them sound like things that are well within the auspices of the district to do. And I have a question about something that may not be.
Sure.
Years ago, when I was running for school committee, some members of the CPAC community mentioned that, when students are younger and they don't see differences across students, they're more willing to engage with their peers successfully in healthy ways. And as students get older, not all students with IEPs, but some students become more socially isolated. And, I think there was a bowling program that one parent started so their students could engage in some sport and do it outside of school and create those experiences. But I also don't want to presume that everything does fall on the district to do, and maybe there's things that can be done in partnership. Has there been any discussion in the task force about how to create a community for those students so when they are as they age and things become more challenging socially, that environments are created where they can be together or be with other students and it be a healthy and successful, relationships can be built. And I'm not saying
That's
this
a great
this
question. No, we haven't specifically talked about within the task force, but throughout the CPAC meetings and discussion, that has come up quite a bit in terms around creating a community for students to feel that sense of belonging. And I think, it's definitely a work in progress. I think there have been a couple of instances this year where we've had to have those difficult conversations of all of our students have a right to participate in whatever activity X. And so I think, I think people are sick of hearing me say it, but our students are general ed students first. And so really destigmatizing that and really talking about that as the term, our students are all of our students. It's not, they're now put on an IEP or a 504, so they're yours now. I mean, they're still all of ours. So how do we find a way to help engage them all and give them all access as appropriate? And I know that has specifically come up with our out-of-district students who can travel up to an hour or more away every day. And so how do you fairly give them access when, their school ends at 3, they're not getting back here to 4? Are there activities that they can participate in, at that time of day? Are there ways that we can adjust our time to help support those students to still be a part of the community? Because the goal is always to have them come back. And if they're 2 to 3 years out of district and come back, they don't have that sense of community anymore. So that has come up quite a bit, and I think there's a lot of work to be done around it, and I agree with you that it should be right on the top of our priority list.
Or no, it's actually, if anything, it's maybe there's ways for the community in partnership, or the town in partnership, the youth task force in partnership, so that it can take place. A lot of the things that I'm talking about are well after the school day.
Right.
But the students, there's confidentiality around what their needs are and what accommodations need to be made, and maybe it's something for a few years out, but I'm glad that you shared that it has come up.
And I think it can be overwhelming to think about for, as someone who's been in it for 20 plus years, for me, it's like, oh, it's just, the students need different things and we'll figure it out. And as someone who has come from the other side, from the out-of-district side of things, and seeing that sense of community sort of dissipating for those students who have been out for so long, it brings me more of a sense of urgency to have that on our radar consistently. So I'm also glad it has come up.
Thanks.
Other questions?
It's just really refreshing, I think. Thank you for coming to share the updates with us. It's refreshing to actually notice such alignment between the way you're framing your work and the way we hear you often talking about the need for systems and the ways that then can support the acceleration of the improvements that we know are overdue. So specifically, I'm really struck so much by some of the examples you shared, even simple, it's not simple, it's very complicated, but tweaking or re-sequencing the scheduling. I appreciate your pointing out the strength of a student-centered sort of ethos for our staff who maybe haven't been working within the systems and infrastructure that necessarily supports that, but making some tweaks like that could actually open up whole new possibilities for inclusion to be meaningful, one student at a time. So it's very inspiring to hear you share that. It makes me excited for the possibilities to see that mindset, writ large, across the district. And even just, but you're being 3 months to work out the bugs before, that's talking about proactively. That's just really, thank you for being so ahead of the curve, because since I've been here, like that has not been that's not been the bar. So I feel like you're really raising that bar, which is awesome.
Thank you. I think one of the really cool things about working in this community too is that people are really student-centered, to your point. And so I think the hard part is usually finding the buy-in from, whether it be faculty or directors or and everyone is here and looking and thriving for how do we help support students. And so I feel like the hard part is past us because we have people who are ready to make those shifts and to build those structures. So.
I just want to add that being on the task force has been awesome. I love it's awesome meeting, being in a room full of people who are so passionate about this and wanting to work together. And sometimes it's hard to get people to volunteer for stuff, and this has just been fantastic, and I'm looking forward to our last meeting.
Yes, I know, me too.
Excited.
And I'm hoping, for me, the goal is to have a yearly task force on a strong theme running through to help build that sense of community.
Yeah.
Primarily, so.
Thank you, Anna, for representing.
Oh, of
yes.
course.
Yeah.
She's been
Great.
wonderful. It's been a great team effort with a lot of people, so it's
Yeah, it is a big group.
All right, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a
you.
good night.
Okay, so that concludes your report.
That concludes it.
Great. So we'll just jump straight into committee reports then, and finance is first.
Well, I have a very brief update. We met yesterday morning, and the entire school committee was present. We received a very brief overview from both Drs. Pavlicek and Burrows about the status of the budget in terms of the feedback they've received from the select board. At the time, it was tentative whether or not we'd be level funded, but it sounds like it's actually confirmed. And one of the things we also were able to confirm is that we are having our budget forum next week, Wednesday. But as a committee, we all agreed that it was appropriate to actually go beyond the rollover budget and have an honest discussion about the needs-based budget. I know that there were members of the select board watching, but they were not co-meeting. So we took on the responsibility to, number one, ensure that we had the opportunity to speak with the town administrator about our request for a needs-based budget. Two, the fact that we were going to talk to our community about that, and I think three was actually trying to pursue an override. I am not on the select board, we are not on the select board to dictate whether or not there's an override, but we did get some soft commitments that in September of this year, this was not part of the meeting, the needs-based budget would be revisited. And I'm optimistic that if there are any opportunities to fund some of the positions in our needs-based budget this year, that we will pursue that with the town. But it was our decision, voted on unanimously, that we were going to make the formal request that the needs-based budget be supported by the select board. I don't know where that's going to land, but I very much appreciate the leadership and advocacy of all of you, because it's something that every fiscal year, whenever there's an opportunity to talk about these things, it's sometimes challenging because of competing priorities in the town. But by making a stance that this is something that we believe is worth advocating for amongst our constituents, I think we have turned the corner, and we'll see where we land. And what else? I have my notes that I took a picture of when I was sitting in the hotel room. I think that was it in terms of us making sure that we've covered our bases. And beyond that, if there's anything that I missed, feel free to add.
Just one note about the meeting from yesterday morning. We're posting it on the website because it had such a helpful brief overview that you referenced, and then there was also some additional good information
Thank you, Mark did.
Mark, you brought in around an analysis of like where we sit relative to other communities in our funding, and we were gonna post it on the miltonps.org under school committee presentations, so that recording would be available to members of the community who are interested in gaining that additional
I
insight.
don't think so.
that
I'll check in the
it
morning.
will- It's not there yet, but it's coming. And then, I guess you mentioned the hearing next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday.
At 6:45 before our regular school committee meeting, where there might be like a version of the brief overview again, right?
Yeah, we've walked through the request, our request of
Yeah.
the select board. And just to go into more detail about what Member Loring shared, it was similarly shared last year. We rank in the top, at least as of last year, we were in the top 40 of performance for districts based on published rankings. And we're funded in the bottom quartile. And Member Loring yesterday actually quantified based on outcomes for MCAS score where we ranked relative to peer districts. And we're outperforming districts but underspending. And it's a very important point to make because last year during one of the public meetings, I want to say it was with the warrant committee or 2 years ago, the point was made that, that means we're efficient. We're doing a great job. And essentially the kernel there is we're asking people to do a disproportionate amount of work less efficiently because we're understaffed. We recognize that there's students in our schools that don't have access to the library. They don't, on a regular basis. They don't have access to a reading specialist. We have over-enrolled classrooms at the middle school level. We don't have an HR director. These are all things that any reasonable person would expect, but given that we're spending in the bottom quartile, it's almost amazing. I used to tell people we're punching out of our weight class, given the performance that we've got, given the way that this district has been funded. And I don't want that to be an excuse for someone to think that the investment isn't necessary, because if anything, we should be grateful for the educators that we've had that have done so much work without the requisite supports and systems that you would normally anticipate. So thank you for doing that analysis, and I look forward to the full presentation with additional detail next week, Wednesday.
Because it's also how can we improve? Like, how can we continue to
Make it out of 40, right? Or whatever we are ranked right now.
Which will not happen without the needs being met, including additional interventionists and things that we know from our data we need. So, yeah, thank you for your leadership on that.
So then, do we have an opportunity to make a request for an override in the spring?
So we can advocate for our budget with the select board, but ultimately they make the decision for the override. I was unable to attend the meeting last night, but through the folks who send me nice texts, the budget is not final. They did not make their final presentation, but I don't think there's general support on across the select board for an override at this time. But I think as long as the vote's not final, there's always opportunities to discuss things further.
And when would that be? Is that next week?
I actually don't know the date. Does anybody has anything to add?
It will be their next meeting. I mean, I having been at the meeting last night, I think it's fair to characterize the discussion as not favorable for an override this year, and also recognizing that there are unmet needs across the town, including in the schools and in other departments that are very important, and that if we didn't as a town pursue an operational override this spring, the conversation I heard last night was really, well, then we would definitely have to talk about it next year. That there is a recognition that it's overdue at this point, that, moving to 8 years since the last override is really pushing that. And so they were discussing the context, and then they were sharing some different reasons why several of the members didn't necessarily see this year being a year that made sense. So again, I think you're right. Our recommendation to the town is the needs-based budget. So, then the select board will kind of do with that what it will.
But I definitely would recommend people attend both meetings so that they can share their feelings. Ultimately, they're elected officials just like we are. And if it's something that the community believes is important, they should have the opportunity to advocate for that.
Right. I mean, I'm just looking through the list of needs that we are requesting this year, and I don't see that any of them can be put off for another year.
Right.
Like reading interventionists for 4th and 5th grade, like a whole year without that just seems
Unreasonable.
It is very unreasonable. Or teachers at the middle school and high school,
Correct.
like for, over-enrolled classes. Like, we need that.
And I respect the select board's authority and their ultimate decision, but I also, it's just as you're saying, if our community thinks it's important, it's equally important for us to be at those meetings to express that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we should do what we can to advocate for that, because I don't feel like, especially, what we went through with the pandemic, what our students went through with the pandemic, to have to make them wait another year because the timing just doesn't feel right. I'm almost feeling like this should have been done last year, so we're already too late. So another year is a long time for a student. It's a huge time, it's a long period of time. So I hope there's an opportunity to make a case for it and, for them to reconsider.
I very much agree. Appreciate all the thoughts. It feels, I have lots of thoughts in my head. Like, one is, it feels like we need to reassess potentially our budget timelines. So, how do we have this conversation sooner? Because it seems like part of the argument is we're too late. And that feels somewhat disingenuous in terms of, it felt like we were at times told to wait because of some of these things that are MBTA related, which obviously was an important discussion the town needed to have, but we can walk and chew gum at the same time, and our kids shouldn't be punished for the fact that there are other priorities. And as I think has been said before, there's always other priorities. There's always something else. That last year was the land swap. The school building project will come up at some point, I'm sure, for a vote. MBTA stuff is not going away anytime soon, it doesn't appear, if the AG has anything to say about it. So these things are not, it's never in a vacuum. And completely, a kid only has 1 year in each grade. And the year we wait is a year where they are not given the appropriate support and instructional capabilities. We're not putting our full effort as a town behind our children, and that is sad. And again, we've gone through the data of how poorly we fund our schools. We've also tried to show that it's actually gotten worse over time. So we actually we're never in the top quartile, but we used to be 32nd, and now we're 26th. So we are going down over time, and that is sad. And I was disheartened by
32nd percentile.
Yes,
And not
percentile.
26%.
That's right. That's a very important distinction.
Sorry.
No, but it's okay. We knew directionally what you were saying.
Sorry.
But and just for the viewing public, the version of the budget, of our needs-based budget, was prepared in December. And the select board was privy to that. So this isn't new, it was delayed.
Yes.
Not by any of our doing.
Yes. I do appreciate how we have gotten to a level service budget, so I don't want to disregard that
effort.
progress
That's
that
really
has been
important.
made.
Yeah.
However, I was disheartened by how quickly the idea of trying to find additional funding or advocate within the town for additional funding was dismissed, especially given it's a $1 million ask versus all other departments. Their asks were 1.8 million, twice as much as what the school is asking for, even though the school budget is twice as much as all the other departments. So I feel like you and your team did a good job of being thoughtful and diligent about what are our needs, what are we strategic. This is not a wish list.
No.
This is what do our kids need. And I feel like it was good time put in, like thoughtful time put in, and just too quickly thrown out. And so completely agree. It is the select board's determination. I agree with you. Like, I don't know what other advocacy we can do. I think going to the meetings is some of it.
Yeah.
I wish we controlled it a little bit more than we do, but those are really my feelings.
And I mean, you know, all the work that Danielle did and presented on, right? And to not be able to offer her those positions that she's requested, you know, it's tough. Like with, I don't know. I am like.
No, you do know. You're saying it correctly. It's a problem. It's a problem. We can do better. We have. I honestly believe we have a very strong group of elected officials, and I think we also have a strong community, and I think we can figure it out. It's amazing what people can do when there's an incentive.
Yeah, I also think that we're at a pivotal moment as a district. We have, you know, great leadership. New members are coming, you know, to the leadership of the district with great aspirations and great vision for the district that we can be.
And skills to deliver it.
Skills to deliver it, exactly. And if we're going to be able to make systemic change that's going to set us up for greater success, we should not be settling or compromising on what we can do.
Yep.
And when we're not making frivolous asks, because that's the reality of it. When you look at it, it is not, you know, let's add all these extra things, but it's more about everything we've been compromising on year after year after year. So it's catching up to us. And so I think that is a moment where we have a leader, we have someone who wants to guide us into that next version of our district, but we need to equip the leadership and everybody else to be able to deliver on that. And so we're going to hear, right, a whole strategy and a whole ideas next week. But at the same time, I hate to like look at you and be like, well, that sounds great.
Maybe next year. Fiscal year 26.
Right, exactly. So I do think, you know, we have an opportunity and we should not squander it as a town to be able to move forward in the way that is going to make us proud.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I do encourage folks to, you know, not just us, but for folks who believe in our students, in the, you know, the power of the change that we can have, to show up and speak up.
And email
Yes,
and call.
yes.
Part of
Knock
the,
on a door.
part of the kind of like the gravity of the design of funding public education is problematic in some ways, and I think it was mentioned, I think it was last night in the select board meeting, where a public comment talked about thinking longer term, thinking 3 years and 5 years, and having strategy around the development of how we're funding education. And because of the process that we follow, and this is not unique to us, this happens in a lot of places, we naturally can converge on year-to-year thinking and current thinking, and all the systems development that we're talking about requires years-long investment, planning, staging, phasing, all of those things. So if we, you know, our conversations, as I'm hearing all of us talk about what our needs are, we have to help the community start to see that we need to be thinking about, you know, if we have a 5-year vision of where we want to be, some of that's tied to resources, some of it's tied to the strategy within the district, but we can't continue to have like a year by year, where is the budget at right now? What can we pay for with the money that's in the pot based on all these kind of, you know, all the inputs into the budget? We need to be funding the vision.
Yes.
And that's harder to do, but we need to be bringing that conversation to town, because that's where we're going to really make an impact.
And to Dick Milano's credit, earlier, he's a town administrator for anyone listening, he did share a 3-year funding plan in January when we were talking about an override. And it would have put us in a position where we wouldn't have to have this conversation after this fiscal year for at least 3. And I think it was the better plan because it reflected what we knew to date needed to be funded. And it was quantified. We were able to say by average house, not we, he was able to articulate by average household what the implications were. And I think it was a responsible budget, and I wouldn't mind revisiting that plan. And I think for the members of the public, look at the last, I think it was in January, the Select Board Finance Committee meetings, you'll see Town Administrator Milano's plan, and he actually showed different scenarios of how much of the needs-based budgets across departments, 25%, 50%, and 75%. It was very thoughtfully done. And I would love to revisit that next week.
Yeah, there were, it had a lot of detail in it, I remember, now that you mention it, that in terms of even like what the property tax implications are and all of those things. So just to give people an idea. And I have to say, I mean, I haven't been in this role too long, but I feel like every year when it's like this looming override talk, and it should just, what is the plan and what is the plan that we're trying to work towards, right? We're just kind of like, oh, might be an override year, it might not be, you just don't know. We've been hearing it it's like this big word that everyone's kind of scared of, right? I think you even mentioned it in your interview when you talk about like budgets and everyone just gonna get scared, So, but I think it's like if we have a plan associated with it, and this is what we're working towards.
It's responsible.
It's responsible, and we're not like there's a strategy. These are the results associated with it. Look at the difference it's making. It paints a better picture for people to understand versus like, how we've always kind of gone back and forth of, do we need it? Are we okay with, can we just get by with this year? And we've been putting a lot of Band-Aids, and, that hasn't quite helped us, so.
And in Dr. Pavlicek's slides.
Yes.
The last, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I was going to say that if you look at the town's budget this year, the 3 of the places where you see the most positive effect are places where we actually did long-range planning.
Yep.
Back in around 2000, we looked at the pension liability and said, we need a formula that will fund the pension liability. And we actually accelerated it to get it done early. It was originally supposed to be by 2027, and they pushed it back to 2040, but it's funded this year. That freed up $2.5 million in this year's budget. That was a 20-year process, but it got us there. The stabilization funds 20 years ago were empty. And we said, can't do that. It's too dangerous to run a town with it. It literally had a $10,000 stabilization fund in 2000. So we've built it up over time to the point where we're safe, more safe and secure in terms of the financial status of the town. And the bond rating has gone up to a AAA bond rating, which it wasn't. Right? That took 20 years. All right. And you look at something like consolidated facilities, which has only existed in the last 15 years. We were spending, contracted services all over town. The schools were hiring plumbers. The library was hiring plumbers. Everybody was. We had none of those people with specialized skills, and we said we had to build a department that would contain it all, and that's been a big success. So the town can do it. It has done it in the past. It just needs to do it on a slightly larger scale.
And do it more frequently. No, but all jokes aside, I think we were able to present last year during the budget what we were able to accomplish with the additional investments that are made. And we just need to continue telling our story, because good work happens when we make those investments, and we're more than happy to articulate it as part of our strategic plan. I think that's what any responsible organization does, and it makes the case for why we need the additional investment. So anyways, let's move on to the warrants. We have 2 warrants, one of which I have to abstain from. Warrant number 31 in the amount of $248,806.31, payable on February 8th, 2024. Can I get a motion to approve that?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? All right, it's unanimous. And then warrant number 32 in the amount of $774,067.12, payable on February 15th, 2024. Need a motion?
So moved?
Second?
Second.
All in favor? With one abstention? Thank you very much. And that's the end of the Finance Subcommittee report.
Okay.
Okay, thank you so much. So, Hannah, over to you.
Ooh. I feel like I am going to be reciting the alphabet again, but we had our, I'll start off with just a summary of yesterday. We had our policy subcommittee meeting yesterday. All members were present. We decided to update policy AD, which is currently our mission vision statement, by removing the mission statement and just having the vision statement. With the addition of where it said MPS strategic plan, we decided to add 2022 to 2027, and then also adding the strategic goal to it, so that in the future, if there are any edits to the strategic plan, they can also be reflected in the policy. And then changing the title as well on that one. And we made a motion to bring this updated policy to the full school committee for our first reading.
Next
Meeting. So same thing for policy ADC, which is currently the tobacco-free school and prolonged vehicle idling policy. I did notice some vehicles idling on my way into the building, but they weren't there long.
And I went outside, I didn't find the signs.
Oh, yeah.
They disappeared.
So I was looking at the signs at Tucker.
Oh,
They're at Tucker.
Okay.
They used to be here.
okay.
Find
Maybe
them.
someone took
Yeah.
them. So anyway, we decided to make that policy just tobacco-free, and updated that, made some edits to include like some of the, vaporizers and all of those other things. And then also removed the idling vehicle reference, and then just made that tobacco-free school policy. And that also made a motion to bring that updated policy to our next school committee meeting for a first reading. And then we moved on to section B. So Glenn took us through all of those policies. Again, some that need to be adopted, some that have changes, some minor changes, some that we don't have and needed to be added, and some deleted. There was one policy in there, policy BIA, which is for new school committee member orientation, which we decided to hold off on until we have completed our operating procedures document. So the next batch will come to you as well for a first reading once we've had a chance to review them. That's that. And then I have some motions. Sorry, lots today. Okay.
Can these go in batches?
I think so. I have to read all of them out, right?
Yeah, you can do it.
You can do the whole thing in one vote if you want.
One. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to make a motion to approve the second reading of the following Section A policies with the suggested edits, deletions, and additions, and update all policies as reviewed to include gender-neutral pronouns, and then to approve with no edits policy AA. They have descriptions next to them. Policy AB, AC, AC-R, ACA, ACAB, ACE, ADDA, ADDA-R. Approve the deletion of policy ACAB-R, ACG, ADA, ADB, ADD, and approve the renaming of policy ACH to policy JICFB, policy IHAMD to policy ADF, which is the wellness policy. Do I have a second?
Second.
I forgot. It was so long, I forgot what I should do next. So, all in favor? Thank you.
Thank you for your work.
Yeah.
It was not me, it was
Ms. Glenn.
and going through all the policies. Thank you.
And this is just the beginning.
Got to get to L.
Okay. All
It's
right.
satisfying, though, to go through and clean all this up.
It is. It's good.
Great.
Satisfying clean my closet.
Exactly.
Spring
Exactly.
cleaning. Yeah.
You don't want to do it every day.
So I know we heard a little bit about the school building committee updates in your report. Is there an additional school building committee report from one of you?
My turn. Your turn?
I wasn't there.
Okay. Oh, that's right. Yes, we did have a school building committee meeting on Monday. I forget if this occurred since our last school committee meeting, but we identified Arrow Street at a prior meeting as the group which we passed along the select board, which last night they approved, which is great. We appreciate them for that. At the meeting on Monday, the architects actually already came and jumped in a little bit and provided some information on a timeline. The timeline, as we asked of them to be aggressive, and they came in very aggressive with a potential August 2027 completion. So that is much faster than if we were able to do this project through MSBA. Time saves money, and so we're really excited about that. They're a really good firm, and they've shown a track record of being able to do that on other projects. That essentially is the timeline is the development of kind of a general idea, schematic design through kind of September, and then using the fall for education of the public, as well as some education earlier on, but for a finalized plan, educating in the fall, doing a potential special town meeting and a town vote in October, November timeline. That would get us to a place where then we could move forward with final construction documents and go out and bid and start the work and kind of complete that within the 2-year window, kind of 24 months of construction. So that's the timeline they presented, which we were excited about and are now working towards. The other piece that we started talking about is the kind of piece that Peter mentioned a little bit earlier, which is the team development and the kind of community engagement work. Kind of the first phase of that being really like the community within Milton schools, and so who are the senior leadership and who are the school level staff and the teachers and all these folks, and like how do they're trying to arrange site visits, school visits to bring people to see newer schools, right? We have some beautiful buildings, but they are quite old, and so what are newer buildings look like? What are kind of the resources and the layouts, to points you made previously of that kind of allow for us to educate and kind of what is more modern, where it's less kind of isolated spaces, but more flexible areas of engagement. So all of that's very exciting. And again, now we really have fully the developed school building committee team with our OPM and our architect. So we are kind of good to go through the point in time which we kind of bring a plan to the town and see what they think. Happy to take any questions.
And I think we'll be inviting Sean to attend one of these meetings in the next few weeks to sort of bring some updates with some of the schematics and things to share with our full school committee here too. So. Yeah,
and I know Sean is going to be doing some information sessions for PTOs, right? Those are groups he's presented at previously. I think he's planning on providing updates at a couple PTO events as well to keep folks informed.
Sounds good. Any questions, comments? Okay, so thank you very much. That just brings us to our minutes. So did anyone have any edits or changes to the minutes for, these are the minutes from February 7th, 2024 school committee meeting. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from February 7th?
Second.
Okay, thank you. All in favor? That's great. So now just in terms of next meeting agenda, so this is a tight turnaround, with the way we've adjusted our schedule a little bit. We are obviously meeting next Wednesday, and as we've said, we will have the budget hearing starting at 6:45 here. It will be hybrid, so members of the community can join from Zoom. And just a sort of reminder of what that is. There will be that very brief overview presentation, and then the point of the budget hearing is to allow members of the community to share their perspectives on the budget we are proposing in essentially like citizen speak format. So we will welcome members of the community to join us in person here in the studio and online. And then when that hearing concludes, we will proceed with our regular meeting for next week, and a key agenda item we've already talked about will be your priority report.
Yep.
And we'll have a number of committee reports as well. Let me just pull this up to make sure. We'll also be joined by our new Director of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging, who has been appointed, just for to be able to greet her. We will be voting, actually, on Katie's appointment, since that is an official item that we vote as a school committee, as an assistant superintendent. And then the committee reports that I have down are finance, obviously, policy, of course. The Capital Improvement Planning Committee does meet tomorrow, so I'll be able to bring a report back from that. We are voting tomorrow on the budget for those requests, which does include the Cunningham fourth floor facilities. You didn't end up meeting, so we'll probably not have that as a report next week, right?
Probably
We
not.
should probably try and
Okay.
do one, like soon, like not wait, yeah.
We'll talk about it, maybe.
Okay. Yeah, you just let Charlene know by Friday.
I think it's Friday, yeah.
Okay. And school building committee is on here too. Will you be meeting again?
No, that means it's not happening.
Yeah.
I think that was there only in case Sean was available to come in.
Oh, right.
So you might want to leave it there for now, and we'll
That's
see. You can
right.
always strike
That's
it
right.
if he's not
That's right.
available.
There's also supposed to be something
And
on
there's no
Tuesday.
policy for next week.
You have the two A's,
Oh, right,
AC
Yeah.
and A.
that's right. sorry.
Yeah, just
No,
those
because I
first
was
readings.
You remember that?
Okay.
So long I already forgot.
It was like 100. It's like, these two.
Yes.
All right, and just to point out, we will be. I know we still need to firm up. We've made some changes to our schedule for the coming weeks. We're going to firm up our invites and make sure all of that is set, and so just stay. That type of stuff can get scheduled through our emails as needed in the next week, or we can revisit next week, making sure that we're all clear on how these next 2 months will unfold with our meetings. So I think that's it that I know of. Any other topics?
Lizzie, I have a question. So on the town website, our next meeting is scheduled on March 7th at 7 p.m. But then on the agenda, the open public budget hearing starts at 6:45 p.m.
On the 6th, not the 7th.
If it's on the town website, maybe it's just the one we have it.
Oh,
you're looking at the wrong month. It's the
I'm
wrong
looking at the
month.
wrong month. I'm sorry.
So it's both on Wednesday, right?
Yes.
No,
Okay.
thank you for checking. So
The hearing is 6:45 and then immediately followed by the regular meeting.
Okay.
Hold on. Let me make sure I have the
yeah,
right.
so I think that will I think it will sort of depend on how many members of the community join us, like how long the budget hearing itself takes.
What time are we
If
supposed to be here?
we have very few people, it's conceivable we could even adjourn that hearing, have a stretch break, and begin our meeting at 7. If we have a lot of people joining us, we will, I think, hear them out and begin our meeting when we are able to do that.
Okay.
So,
Great.
yeah. But, okay, I think that's all I have. If you think of other items, of course, you can let me know, and Friday is our deadline to post the agenda. So I guess that just brings us to adjournment for this evening. I would like to just say thank you all for a really great meeting. I feel like this was some good discussion tonight. Appreciate you all. And with that, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Do we have the hockey update?
8:40.
I don't have one.
I don't know.
I hope that's not bad news.
Oh, it was Karen and Danielle.
Do you like Milton Access Live?
2-0 Milton.
Ooh.
Milton has a shutout goalie.
It's not over yet, right?
No.
Right, but she had.
3-0.
Thank you.
Like 10 shutouts.
Wow, that's great.
That's awesome.
All right.
It's like unheard of. She's a former catcher in baseball, and she plays the goalie role, like the catcher. The ball, like the puck is coming, she picks up it, and she catches.
That's awesome.
10 shutouts. It's amazing.
Hard, yeah.
I wish her all the best. I can see her on the Olympic team one day. She's that good.
Wow.
That's awesome.
3-time state champ too.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's awesome.
Very cool.
So,
Don't get ahead of yourself. Don't jinx it.
If honestly, this stage in the game, she's probably looking for a shutout. If there's 3-0.
Well, okay, let's
Good night.
adjourn our meeting.
Good idea.
Good vibes.
Good vibes.
Let's adjourn first.
Just over their direction. Okay. So, is there a second on the motion to adjourn?
I second that.
Okay. All in favor?
Yes.
Thank you. Good night.